want to tell people is something about you and how you came about becoming a writer,
Hmm.
and tell me what inspires you and who you are, where you're coming from, and what made you decide to write, or were you always a writer, like
Okay.
from a
Yeah, no, I
young...
was not always a writer. I started off, I always wrote, but I never considered myself a writer. I always had a journal and was in my room. But I ended up training as a professional actor. So I was very
Right.
interested in the arts all the time. So acting, I thought, was my thing. And I do love it. And I have acted since I did all that many years ago. But I ended up moving back to the island from
Mhm.
Vancouver, from the city, from my career because my mom was sick
Right.
with early onset Alzheimer's, and I was young, and it just changed my whole life around. And I discovered poetry and writing just kind of by accident. It was a beautiful accident. I studied with a woman named Kate Braid first. Um, and she was really instrumental in getting me to look at the art form of poetry as an art form, as a genre of writing. Like,
Mhm.
you know, I think a lot of there's craft to every art form, and I think there's definitely craft to poetry. So it takes a lot of love and patience and all those things. And then I also, after that, ended up miraculously getting to work with Patrick Lane, who is, in my opinion, one of Canada's finest poets. He's no longer alive, but I started working with him in 2008, and I had over 10 years of working with him. So he really, that's the reason I have 4 books. Like I would go to yearly retreats with him, like sort of masterclass retreats where you shut yourself off from the world, and learned what I learned and wrote what I wrote. It's pretty amazing.
Isn't that isn't that
Yeah.
great? I think it's isn't it the word serendipity?
Yes. That's what it exactly right. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So you go to retreats on a yearly basis, or
Yeah, I still do.
now things change, or...
Well, since his death, it's been a little bit haphazard, but another amazing poet who is his wife, Lorna Crozier, also leads these retreats. And I haven't been in a while, but I will be going again this year. So yeah, for me, I need a dedicated time to write because otherwise, life,
Yeah.
life,
Yeah. Yeah. Life.
life is
Life.
so busy.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
unless I take
Yeah.
the time away from my life, then I tend to not write. So yeah.
Yes. I find that same for me. It's true that when I am in a painting mode,
Hmm.
everything else kind of like on the side is just, left to the side. And
Yeah.
my dog is like, but mommy.
Yes. Remember, I
My
have to
partner's
eat.
also like, how long are you going to be painting tonight? How much longer? I'm like,
Aw.
So how exciting that
It
I
is.
had the opportunity to meet you and read all 4 of your books by
My
now. And
goodness. And can I ask you, Sylvina, how you started off?
well, I was always drawing and painting as
Okay.
well. When I
Yeah.
was in primary school, everybody's like, "Oh, can you draw this for me?" And I would
Yeah.
draw people, their assignments and whatever. And yes, for me, it has been a way of expression early on. And I always wanted to go back home and go to my room and at
Yeah.
my desk paint. My parents were very supportive and in that way. And I, yeah, I cannot imagine a life without being creative in some way. And painting and
Yeah.
drawing is my thing.
Yeah.
So, and I studied, in university in the US, and it opened up so many doors, meeting really nice mentors.
Mm.
Like you say, it's so important to meet
Yeah.
someone that you can learn so much from them. And I started thinking, well, maybe that'll be me someday. And it's great even now, meeting other people, other creatives, and see what
Yeah.
they're doing. It's always very inspiring.
Yeah.
So
I agree. Yep.
yeah. So this is great. I love that you have given me the opportunity to collaborate with you.
I love
Um,
collaboration. It's fantastic.
I have had the question as like, do you check in with Tina to see that your paintings are whether your paintings are going? And I'm like, no, I'm just going for
Yeah,
it.
exactly. And that's what I love about, because I work with composers as well who, so,
Yes.
and I know nothing about composition of music. I know nothing about visual art. I appreciate both artistic expressions, but I'm not trained in that. So what I love about collaboration is handing it over and then that person coming back like you are with your beautiful paintings and saying, this is
Oh,
what
that's great.
inspired me, right? Yeah, it's really,
Yes, I find it's interesting to work finding inspiration from someone else's work,
hmm
especially if it's a complete different media. So
yeah,
words becoming a visual painting, it is kind of overwhelming at the beginning, and I have to
yeah.
go over and over and reread the poems that I pick
Hmm.
um, and then it's okay. Well, this is my take on it. I hope that she likes it. But
Yes.
it is very interesting, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, we don't connect, but I do like to know, like I've asked you a few more details about
hmm
your family and some of the poems that sparked curiosity to see if something else comes up.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do it literally, but
No.
you know,
Yeah.
there's
It's like,
certain words
yeah.
that ring a bell, that spark a flame or something. I was like, okay, this is where I want to go.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah. And it's very
yeah.
cool because in the world of poetry, there's something called ekphrastic poetry, where
Okay.
a writer takes, writes a poem to a painting. So the opposite. So they're taking
Wow.
inspiration from the visual and then writing,
Yeah.
which is, I did that with the other painter I worked with on the first book. She would send me
Yeah.
all of those paintings of doors. And I thought, oh my goodness, I hope I have enough in me to write like doors. I mean, they're beautiful doors, they're in the village. But sure enough, when you open yourself up, you just go with it. So it's
Yeah.
fun. Fun. Yeah.
That is true. When I pick a poem, so what I'm doing in this
hmm
one project that we have is I pick three poems for the week, and then I
Oh,
work on those three.
cool.
And so
That's
they may
great.
be or not from the same book,
Yeah.
but I picked those three, and I was like, okay, let's see what can come up of these three, right?
That,
So I'm just going to pick maybe a couple. Where are they? Oh,
okay.
here.
Yeah.
And then ask you what inspired that particular poem, and then and I can tell you what inspired me in
Okay.
in regards to that.
And you,
So I'm going
okay.
to talk about this book, the one, the Playing into Silence,
Okay.
and the one about knife, and
Oh,
it's
yes.
and
Yes.
if you remember it, then we don't need to read it, but
I have the book here. Let me just grab it and remind myself. Sorry, I have to lift you up and put you down.
beware of the dull Henkel. And here's the other interesting thing about your poems is that
Yes.
every now and then I come across a word and I'm like, what
What is
is that?
that? Yeah. So you
And
looked
it's
it
in
up.
English, not even
Yes,
in
I
Italian.
know. Yeah, this one is a specific word, isn't it?
So
Yeah.
I had, obviously, thank goodness there's Google.
Yes.
And so I Googled. I was like, okay, so I'm going to tell you a fun story about this one after you tell me your point,
Oh,
your take on this one.
okay. So this one I completely modeled off of another poet's poem.
Mm-hmm.
She has written a book called A Compendium of Everyday Things. So she takes
Oh,
everyday things, everyday things, doorknob, knife. Nope, not knife, because I did knife. Fork, spoon, window, everything. And she writes on it. So
how fun.
that's what I did. I went, oh, let me try that. And I made sure she didn't write one about knife, and there isn't one in that book about knife. So That's what I did.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, I really enjoyed that one. Of course, I had to find out what Henkel was, and then I
Yes.
realized. I did like particularly the last two verses, if they can call verses, I don't know, the
Yeah.
last two, three and four,
Yeah.
because predictably in a meal, the knife size with a spoon, and I'm like, yeah, that's great. Um, and then all the visuals. It's not the loner, rather it protects the lowly spoon. And then on number four, um, forks may make the difference in roads and rivers, but it's the knives undoubtedly that divides. Says this is this and that is that. The
Yes.
knife may not tune an orchestra like the fork, but it provides the perfect cut of hair from a horse's mane for the tetherball. The resonance that clear. So I love that poem, and
Aw.
of course I did something very playful and
Can you show me?
maybe not
Is it there?
incorporating every sentence that you
No.
have to say. But this is what happened to me. So
Okay.
I painted the whole thing. I was almost about to finish, and I put it aside for the night, and I went to bed. And then I kept tossing and turning and tossing and turning because I ended up having painted one of those dull Henkel knives. And it was quite, big in the painting. And I'm thinking, well, that's very aggressive. Not me. It's like, I need to take that knife off the painting because it's too
It's too much.
aggressive. Like,
Oh, hilarious.
how do
Wow.
you how do you visually express that that knife is not going to cut anything because it's dull? No one's going to know. It's just pointy and big.
Right. Of course. Yeah.
So the
Because you
way I
can't
had
feel it.
said it, yeah, I said no. So I had to cover it up, and then now I'm very happy with it not being there. How paintings, as the same as words, begin to speak to you, and like
Yeah.
on the back of your head, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, Silvina, that's too bad.
Yes. Well, that's interesting because you edited it basically like I do with words. Like at least
Yeah.
with words, I mean, I don't know how visual artists do it. You have to like start again or cover up or like,
Hmm?
but for me, it's
Yeah.
easy. You just cut it out or
Or erase,
move it
or
around or yeah,
yeah.
especially with
Do
now with,
you do
yeah.
you write handwrite, or use your typewriter, or your, sorry, not even your
Yeah,
typewriter,
I
your
know.
computer?
Yeah. So for poetry, I tend to handwrite it first. And
Yeah.
then I put what I've handwritten onto the screen and then I
Mhm.
edit it on the screen.
Right.
Um, I really like the act of
Yeah.
writing it still for poetry. It's really important to me because it's really visceral. You feel it. You like go.
Mhm.
Sometimes I can't write as fast as what's coming, and then
Mhm.
it's really messy. And so,
Yes.
um, but yeah, and then I edit it on the screen. If I'm writing a longer piece, which I have just started to experiment with prose poetry, like I did in my last book, there's some
Yes.
longer pieces, which for me is really a big risk. Like I don't write big, long pieces. For those, I write on the computer because
Yeah.
uh, it's a lot to
Yeah.
compose. Yeah,
I get it. I get it. There is something like that similar in painting. I
right.
do prefer to use my hands and bare hands. Like people say, oh, don't you use gloves? And I'm like, no,
Oh,
I need to feel, I'm a very tactile person.
yeah, me
I need
too.
to feel the paint. I
Yeah,
need to feel the brush. I need to,
yeah,
touch the camera. I'm like, I need to touch. If
yeah.
I were in a museum, I always say this. It's too bad that I can't touch it.
Yes. Oh, I'm the same. I'm very, very kinesthetic. Yeah.
Yeah. And oftentimes when I do exhibit my work, I do tell people it's okay to touch. And people are
Oh,
looking at me and
yes,
I'm like,
I
yeah.
bet. Yeah.
That takes me to the next question, which someone asked. And I said, I have no idea.
Hmm.
What makes something a poem? And I know that, it probably is a very long answer, but
Right.
you mentioned your prose poems. And then what makes a poem a poem?
And not a story
Yeah, like because
or
I
a sh
thought it was something to do with rhyme, but not necessarily,
yeah.
obviously.
So,
I know
well,
nothing
I
else.
mean, yeah, some poetry is that. uh, but most poetry written contemporary poetry is free verse, it's called. So
Hmm.
there is
Okay.
some, and that's sort of what Patrick taught me a lot about is all of the internal rhyme. And for me, my personal taste is I hate poetry that rhymes every line. Like
Yeah.
I tune out. But some
Uh-huh.
people like that.
Yeah.
That's poetry. But for me, it doesn't, that's not what I can hear well.
Yeah.
I like the more subtle rhyme, definitely. And also for poetry, for me, it's really, it's saying something usually pretty big. Like it's big topics in a small amount of space. So you're really condensing the words down to get to the heart of the matter really fast. And for me,
Mm.
that's what I love.
Uh,
Why I love poetry is
yeah.
because short story, fiction, creative nonfiction, they're wonderful, but they're using a lot of words to get and painting pictures, like not literally, but in the words to get to what they're trying to say. But for me, I love that challenge of trying to get it in one page. And then you
Wow.
get to play with line breaks. That there's so much fun you can have with line breaks. Like Patrick used to say you want to take every line needs to be there for a reason. So when you see the line, you could take it out on its own and it would have its own impact. I don't get that every time by any means. But when you get that, it's like, whoa, how cool is that? Like you have a double meaning
Yeah.
or all of those things. So
And that is, yeah,
that's for me poetry. Yeah.
that is fantastic. It does come across that way, I think, in the
Mm,
very, limited knowledge I have on how to write poems. Um, but I do really appreciate what you're saying in less words, um, how you combine them,
yeah.
and it is in a way also visual because if you're saying the
Yeah.
spacing of the lines, it'll
Yeah.
give you some. Okay, now I need to something happen here. It
Yes.
changes
Yeah.
either mood or it changes stake
Yeah.
or it changes topic or whatever. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's pretty
And,
cool.
and actually in some of my training, in my acting training, when you study Shakespeare as an actor,
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
studying how he broke his lines, especially in the sonnets. You're studying punctuation as clues as to when you take your breath.
yeah.
So there's a lot that a writer can do
Oh,
to make that
wow.
happen. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna pick one other point. I haven't painted it. It's blank right now, but I
Okay.
really do like it. It's from this one book, the
Okay.
first one I think it is,
Yeah.
and it's the Si Vende for sale.
Yes.
And I love that one.
Huh.
I don't know. There's something. First of all, if we're gonna talk about sounds,
Right.
that Si Vende sound,
Yes. I got to look at
like
it now.
ah, it speaks to me.
Yeah.
Anyways, I like the last verse again that says, "The trees, giant men casting shadows onto their memories of light, of a beloved house that smelled of roses in Casa Calenda." And I imagine, and this one I think was one of the first ones I picked
Oh, interesting.
all along. Yet I
Okay.
haven't done it yet, but I visualize a forest like a BC forest
Yeah.
with all the not necessarily the leaves of the trees, but just the trunks, just lined up like Emily Carr
Yeah.
type
Right.
imagery,
Yeah.
and then through it, so very you know greenish, dark, foresty, wet, like we are here,
Yeah.
and then through the trunks, I can see yellows, orange, warms from
Wow.
Casa Calenda stuff.
Yeah.
So it would be just depth, I guess. But I'm looking forward to that one. I hope that the anticipation doesn't ruin the whole
Oh,
thing. But
stop. It'll be beautiful. That's really cool. And
yeah,
that's how it feels. It feels like those two worlds. Like I have another poem where I talk about the trout are jumping in the river. It's raining, but inside the house the geraniums are blooming and it's dusty and it's kind
yes,
of a similar
Yes,
Similar. Yes. Yeah. The two
yes,
worlds in one, right? Yeah.
yes. And I find that so now I'm working on my painting number 9,
Hmm.
um, that a lot of the imagery that I've read before is coming through. So the
Ah.
last painting that I haven't showed you yet, it's about one poem. However, the geraniums make it
Yes.
into it. So
It's
I'm
a
like, okay,
theme.
this
It's a
one doesn't
comment.
mention the geranium.
You're finding the images that I use a lot. Yes, you're right. Yeah.
So in the end, this one that I'll show you, I'm thinking, well, it's all in one.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
And that could happen because I think that as I familiarize myself more and more,
Hmm.
I think that's what ends up happening.
Yeah.
It's also some sort of a serendipity thing. I don't deeply think about it, but yeah.
Yeah, same when I write. I mean, and I think for me, I write what I know, and it's a lot of them, except for a lot of the poems in Playing into Silence, which are not my story. The
Hmm.
other ones are. So it's going to be imagery and, you know, I'm Italian, all of those,
Yeah.
like the curses in the new book, I had so much fun with. I do want to do more on that,
Yes.
with recipes, like anyway, it's just because of who I am. But I will also tell you that Sivende, I worked with a singer-songwriter. She has written a song to this. I
Oh,
translated into Italian and
really?
yeah, I'll send you the song if you want to hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Yeah. Okay.
See, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
I from the last book, I will be painting Lucia. Is that your middle name or this is made up?
No, it's that's my name. That's real.
Okay, see. So I really like that one again.
Yes.
There's trees and then geraniums in
Yeah,
that one.
there it is. That's the one I was talking
And then
about.
the tomatoes. And I like
Yes.
so tomatoes
Yeah.
tomatoes and all the different types of tomatoes and some other one that I'm
Yeah.
also gonna paint.
Yeah, tomatoes also come back. You're right. I can think of other poems where I wrote about tomatoes.
There's one that tells you about the at the end of the three types, like the
Oh yeah.
um
Plum, cherry, grape or
yeah.
something like that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm painting that one,
Oh,
which
okay.
is yeah, I'm gonna paint that one. I forget where in which book, but yeah, they make
It's in
their
Mexico.
appearance quite
Yes.
frequently, which I love.
Yes. That's a good reminder for me because obviously I need to write a recipe book with poems and tomatoes. I mean, tomatoes are a staple, as you know, in Italian food. So there you
Yeah,
go.
and then there's another one that you mentioned, garlic, and how
Oh yeah,
you are being told this is the way garlic gets to
teal.
be peeled,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
And I like that as well.
yeah,
I can relate quite quite easily. So, anyways,
yeah.
it's telling us that it's only 10 minutes to go, but
Oh, I see.
um,
Okay.
I just want to just wrap up by saying this is just fun, like
Yay!
a lot of fun,
Good.
and
It's fun for me too. It really is.
yeah,
I just love,
yeah,
and feel free to send them to me. I know, or whenever. Just,
yeah. Oh,
whatever you want to share, when
absolutely.
you want to share.
The other thing I just wanted to ask you is, well, you're gonna have to pick a couple of poems for me to page live.
Oh, oh. What do you want to pick those
Because
though?
I can
Or
pick them and then
okay,
I can
read
let you
them.
know.
Okay, yeah.
Because yeah, that's what I want to do is the day of the reception is, you do some readings and then I can just paint. It could be something that I paint and it's taking a few of the poems that you read or just one poem. I think it
Okay.
could be a mixed match of things.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
that would be fun. I think
that'll
that the
be
people
fun.
I've been telling about that, they're like, oh, that would be so cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see.
I think I told you, I may have told you that I was part of a show in Nanaimo where a sculptor did that. He was
Oh no.
sculpting on stage but it was to music. Somebody was performing music and he was
Yeah.
sculpting to what he was hearing.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Yes, so this will be similar, only you will be reading.
Okay.
And
Yay.
then I have a girl I know doing the photography piece and the
Oh,
filming.
wow.
So
Okay.
we'll have that live for people who can attend. Look at
Oh,
us.
wow. Look at you. My goodness. Way to go, Silvina.
I know, I know.
Wow.
This
Wow,
is
wow.
serious.
Yes, it is. It's great.